You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Good morning and welcome to episode 104 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. And I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I did not want to do today's show. I had no plan to do today's show. The plan was to wait until the trade deadline passed, and then I could talk about all the moves that did or did not happen. But then my phone started to blow up, and I was watching the Lakers and Pacers game. I just wanted to tune out. I didn't want to watch the State of the Union address. I didn't want to watch anything intense. So I just wanted to watch a game of basketball. Lakers and Pacers looked interesting. So I wanted to see how the Pacers were going to play without Oladipo, to be honest with you. And yeah, my phone started to blow up during that game, and I thought, oh shit, it's happened. You know, Anthony Davis has been traded. But they weren't messages regarding that. They weren't emails regarding that. What they were, people watching the same game, and they were shocked by it. I wasn't shocked by what happened last night between the Pacers and Lakers. But a lot of people were surprised, and they are surprised, by how quickly the Lakers have fallen off the cliff. And then it hit me. It really hit me. The Lakers, they have exceeded all expectations for myself this year. Going into this season, I said all along the Lakers would be a train wreck. They would be a disaster. They're not going to work. This is not a good fit. And even my own expectations for that happening have been completely exceeded. The Lakers are so successful right now at being a failure. This is insane when you're looking at this. You know, forget the talent that's on this team. We'll get to that in a minute. This is going to be a long rant, so settle in. But forget the talent that's on this team. The last year for Kobe Bryant, they had, 17 wins, 16 wins? It was a pretty dismal season. The next year, they brought in Luke Walton. And they went from 17 or 18 wins to 26 wins. The season after that, last season, they went to 37 wins. That's a 20-game improvement over 2 seasons without adding really a star player. You know, I get it. You added Ingram, but you also lost D'Angelo Russell, and this guy's an all-star now. So you tell me whether that was a good trade-off. They added Lonzo Ball, but he hasn't been a huge addition. He's a good defender, I'll give you that, but he's definitely not a star player. So based off that trajectory alone, and where Walton was taking them, you would expect them to at least be in playoff contention. And they still are, I'll give you that. But you would also expect them, with the addition of LeBron James, who is a top 10 player of all time, and still, at least on the offensive end, close to his prime, you would think that they would be better than 500. This is so disappointing. It's such bullshit too when you think about what a great organization the Lakers are. And for them to be essentially hijacked. Because I was watching the game, I was not shocked. You know what I was surprised by? I wasn't shocked by the result, but what I was surprised by was how quickly the Lakers have turned on LeBron. They've switched off from him. I did not think they would have the backbone to do it that quickly. Because he's gone after the coach, and he's gone after every single player on that team, with the exception of some of the veterans. He hasn't gone after Tyson Chandler. But any player of value that they can trade, he has gone after. And it's disappointing. It's so disappointing. This team is better than what the record shows. They're much better, my God, than what we saw last night. But is this the new standard for the Lakers? Because when you think about it, where can they go from here? They have shot themselves in the foot so royally bad with this whole Anthony Davis situation. Anthony Davis, let's recap this a little bit. Anthony Davis last year, had DeMarcus Cousins gotten injured earlier, he was probably going to be the MVP of the regular season last season. He was instrumental in them not just getting to the second round, but sweeping the Blazers in the first round. He looked brilliant. What has happened this year? He signed with Clutch Sports. He wants to be in LA. I get it, but guess what? I don't care. And neither do the Pelicans. You are under contract. It is their decision. If you want to say, well, that's not right, guess what? It is. If you sign a contract, that's the law. You have to fulfill your end of the contract. If you don't like the contract, give back all your money and terminate it. I don't think that's going to happen. But you can't just pick and choose where you want to go. You're not a free agent. If you're a free agent, by all means, go where you want to go. But you're not a free agent. So you have to go where the contract, where you were traded or where you were currently situated. But the fact that he has demanded a trade isn't enough. When other suitors have come into play, he has openly said, you're getting me for 1 year. That's it. Then I'm going to LA. So what, you're trying to handcuff the Pelicans' options here to just be traded to Los Angeles? That's not good enough. That's really not good enough. Now, the Lakers, from all reports that I've read, the Lakers have offered pretty much the entire team, not named, with the exception of LeBron James, for Anthony Davis. But I think it's a matter of principle now. Because prior to this season, Anthony Davis, look, they were one player away from really contending for the whole thing. As I said, they made the second round. They were competitive in some of those games against Golden State. You add one player to that, maybe a Damian Lillard or someone like that, to the core that they have. You can't tell me they're not right there with, say, Houston was last season. And look how close Houston was to beating the Warriors. So the point that I'm making in all of this is the mess that has been created by Anthony Davis and the Lakers has killed their franchise so much quicker than I thought was ever possible. This team had talent. This team had a great coach. All of a sudden, that great coach is called into question by who? By LeBron, who wants to run everything? Why would you get rid of Luke Walton? He wants him gone. They just can't justify it yet. I guarantee you, if they don't make the playoffs, he's gone. Who are they going to bring in? I don't know. How well did Tyronn Lue last? How long did he last after LeBron left? This appeasement to LeBron, it's actually hurting LeBron. Because they can't bring... LeBron wants players that won't hold his feet to the fire and push him. He doesn't want a Phil Jackson. This is why I laugh when people say that, well, LeBron's never had a Phil Jackson. How do you think he would have gone with Phil Jackson? How do you think he would have gone with Popovich or Pat Riley? Not very good. And the reason behind that is he wants everyone else to be held accountable except for him. We have seen this time and time again. Think back to every single playoff loss that he has endured, with the exception of 2011, because there's no justifying that one. If they could, they would. But every single playoff loss, dating back to really 2007, it's always someone else's fault. He didn't have enough help in 2007. 2008, his teammates didn't have enough help. 2009, didn't have enough help. 2010, even though he had Shaq and Antoine Jameson, didn't have enough help. 2011, yeah, he gets blamed for that. He deserves to be blamed for that. 2014, not enough help. 2015, not enough help. 2016, they won. 2017 and 18, not enough help. So, and if you're Anthony Davis and you're hearing that, why are you so obsessed with going to Los Angeles? Don't you dare tell me there's not a conflict of interest here. Because LeBron James owns Clutch Sports, which is who he signed with, and Rich Paul. So if you're Anthony Davis, what are you getting out of this? Just say the Lakers have to unload everybody, including future draft picks, for for Anthony Davis. So what, you're going to be surrounded with... What would be left? What would really be left there? You're not competing for a title unless you bring in other players. You do need to, have some role players, some shooters, and some defensive players to round out that roster. Even Jordan and Pippen or Shaq and Kobe, they needed players alongside them. Shaq and Kobe were amazing. Derek Fisher was needed. Rick Fox was needed. Robert Horry was needed. Jordan and Pippen needed Rodman. They needed Kerr. They needed Kukoc. The Lakers of the 80s, they needed James Worthy and Byron Scott, Thompson, all those guys, Michael Cooper. I could go on and on with that. You don't just win with 2 guys and a bunch of scrubs. You need some players that will actually be able to contribute. Ask the Knicks, who unloaded everything for Carmelo Anthony, how fun that was trying to build around. Because you can't build around it at that point. And we've already seen the plethora of players that aren't interested in playing alongside LeBron James. Whether it's Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard or whoever. They're no longer interested. Paul George, no longer interested. So if you're Anthony Davis, what's the attraction there? Because by the time they actually get around to being able to rebuild, LeBron's going to be gone. So you're going to be stuck there. Yeah, you may be 25. You're going to be, 28, 29 by the time LeBron's gone. So in whose interest is Rich Paul really operating under? Is it under LeBron's or is it under Anthony Davis? Because honestly, the Lakers are not the best option for Anthony Davis. And by everything he said, that's the only option. How many teams are really going to take the gamble now and trade for him? I don't even think Boston would pull the trigger on that, even including Kyrie Irving. Because Kyrie Irving, it looks like he's going too. Where did that come from? After one conversation with LeBron James, bam. Oh my goodness. How quickly does that happen? This is insane. This is truly insane because what we were told to believe, and I didn't buy into it. As I said, I always said that the Lakers were going to be a train wreck. But I did think they were going to make the playoffs at least. That looks in severe jeopardy. But I never bought into the Lakers were going to challenge Golden State in the conference finals or anything silly like that. What I did think, but what I did argue, my point being as to why they wouldn't, is the Cavs had a much better... You take LeBron off both teams, and the Cavs had a much more talented roster. Kevin Love being the reason for that. And nobody really could argue that unless if you also took Kevin Love. Now, if you also took Kevin Love off the roster, then you can say the Lakers had more talent. But the Lakers had a lot of young talent. The potential was much higher than the Cavs. So that part I agreed with. But all of a sudden, that's not good enough. But those players, the Kuzmas, the Lonzo Balls, the Ingrams, if everyone else could see that the potential was higher, but the actual talent wasn't there just yet, or the skills weren't there just yet, why didn't LeBron see that? Why is that so surprising? And why is there such an urgency to bring in Anthony Davis right now? That does not make any logical sense to me whatsoever. What I see happening is LeBron realizing that he needs another top 5 player alongside him to even make the playoffs and make the second round. And he sees... Because right now, the only real thing that he is obsessed with this the LeBron versus Jordan angle, narrative, whatever you want to call it, storyline. He's so obsessed with it. The only thing he's got really going for him, and this tells you right then and there how big of a difference there is between Jordan and LeBron in terms of accomplishments. The only thing he's got going for him, he's never lost in the first round. Jordan lost in the first round 3 straight years in his first 3 years. Now, if he loses in the first round now, and his supposed offensive prime, that you can't really argue that. You can't really, that's a pretty big black mark. Because at what point, apart from just accumulative statistics, do you have to have LeBron James over Jordan? So I think he sees that unraveling and he's getting desperate. And the Lakers are getting desperate to appease to him. This is why Luke Walton is now considered a bad coach. This is why all this young talent, despite the steps, the progress that they were making prior to LeBron James arriving, that's not good enough. And that Brandon Ingram and Kuzma, they're not good enough. Get rid of them. Trade them all. The Lakers they're a mess. We know this. But it's disturbing because you think about how loyal of a franchise and a fan base it really is. I don't care for California. I don't care for Los Angeles specifically. I don't like that city. I just don't. I could never live there. You could offer me $100 million. I would not live there. I would go insane. That being said, Laker fans, I've got nothing but respect for those. They are so loyal to that franchise. And I said this leading into it, that once LeBron James starts his shenanigans, look, if Laker fans weren't going to deal with Kobe Bryant requesting a trade, how are they going to deal with this guy? They're going to turn on him. LeBron James looks out for himself. And he's going to do whatever it takes for him, or he's going to try his best to micromanage every single situation, big or small, to make himself look better. Instead of, he wants the outside to look better despite what's on the inside, rather than working the opposite way, which is the way most people actually operate. So the point I'm making with that is, he doesn't care. He will throw anyone under the bus. Hell, like the rumors of Delonte West and his mother will prove to you, which came from LeBron's camp. Where do you think that comes from, by the way? LeBron's camp. LeBron's camp is not something that he's not associated with. Who do you think's the center of LeBron's camp? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. But the fact is, if he's willing to go that low to make himself better, to justify a bad playoff loss, then what do you think he'll do to other people? Think, if you're Anthony Davis, once again, think about this. If all the players are being traded, all the other talented players, from Kuzma to Ingram, all those guys are being traded to New Orleans for you, and the Lakers go down in the first round, or whatever it is, or don't make the playoffs, who do you think's going to get the blame? As I said before, it's never LeBron. Ask Chris Bosh. Ask Kyrie Irving. Ask Kevin Love. Ask them all. It's always those guys that cop the blame. It's never, ever, 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 ever LeBron James' fault, with the exception of the 2011 finals. It's just that simple. And even then, they've tried to come up with all kinds of weird and wonderful excuses. There's just too much pressure, and you just didn't understand it, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, okay, you lost. You lost really badly. Take this loss. Learn from it. And yes, they did win 2 titles after that. But that's another topic for another day. The point that I'm making is it is never his fault when they lose, with the exception of that one series. So if you're Anthony Davis, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed, because you've now you've backed yourself into a wall where you can only go to Los Angeles. No team is going to really be interested in trading for you now, because you've said you'll only be a 1-year rental. Why would they unload any players of real talent for you when they know they're only going to get you for 1 season, and you're injury prone as it is? So what, you're going to get you for 50 or 60 games? That's not good enough. It's truly not good enough. And how do they know your heart's in it? I mean, that's a big question. When it comes to sports, man, desire, I hate saying this because they're meant to be professionals, but desire and work ethic and motivations, they play a big role in winning and losing. You would think there'd be some kind of professional pride. You would think. But there's, load management. Anybody? That's a good one. That's my new favorite, by the way. Look, the point that I'm making in all of this is the Lakers are a disaster. The NBA is a disaster right now. The NBA is a train wreck. It's not just the Lakers. We don't... It's frustrating because you see so many great athletes, but the product is bad. And I can understand, I've put a lot of thought into why the NBA is not as popular as it should be in the United States, where it's actually played. And this is a reason that I cannot dispute. If you're a smaller, not just a small, but a smaller market like New Orleans, why would you be loyal to a franchise? If you're a fan of them, why would you? You're meant to, you've got what many people consider to be a generational player. I don't think he's a generational player. I think he's a fantastic player, a great player. He's in the same echelon as, say, a Charles Barkley. But Charles Barkley was not a generational player either. The player of that generation was Jordan. Anthony Davis is not the player of this generation. The point that I'm making, though, is you got really lucky because it could have been him or Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. So you got really lucky when it comes to getting Anthony Davis. You're one piece away from really challenging for it. And then because he signs with Clutch Sports, all of a sudden he must go to Los Angeles like his life depends on it. It's hard to maintain loyalty. And even if they are able to bring in all those young players, what, you meant to start up all again? And like, what are you meant to do in that circumstance? And then what happens if Brandon Ingram turns into an MVP candidate? Is he going to want to go to New York or somewhere else? To Chicago, maybe. It's frustrating. I'm not even a Pelicans fan. I'm frustrated at it because I can understand why people just don't invest their time or money into supporting teams. But the fact of the matter is the Lakers, the way they lost last night was bad. I know the image that's circulating the internet where he's sitting 2 or 3 seats away from his teammates. Don't buy into that. That's nonsense. What probably happened in that situation were the 2 or 3 players that he was sitting next to got up to substitute in and they were waiting at the scorer's table. That's probably what that is. I don't think he was because, you know, courtside seats are expensive. They're not going to have like 6 or 7 additional seats on a bench. They have enough seats for the players and the trainers and the coaches. They don't just have 2 or 3 spare. That being said, this is bad. This is really bad. Even if they bring Davis in, their season is screwed. If they don't bring Davis, they're even more screwed. Luke Walton, please get the hell out of there. Go coach in Chicago or somewhere else. Somewhere where, you know, if Chicago is a better option, you know that they're in a really bad state. That's the Lakers. And also, if you're Anthony Davis, for somebody that's as injury prone as what he is, let's see have a look at what just happened to John Wall. You know, the dude sitting at home apparently ruptured his Achilles. How that happens, I don't know. I mean, how many people of his age as a professional athlete just rupture their Achilles? You know, you hear about super old people doing that at the YMCA, but they're playing. You know, so, but the point that I was going to make with John Wall is if you're Anthony Davis and you're injury prone, what happens if you blow out your Achilles? You know, it's not like you're going to be starving in the street, but let's have a look at John Wall's numbers, his contract coming up. I don't have it in front of me, so just give me a second. Okay, so I knew he was signed to a Supermax, but I was unaware of how much he was going to get. So obviously he's out for the rest of the season, and then whilst he was sitting at home, he tore his Achilles or popped his Achilles, whatever it is. Next year, $37.8 million. The year after, $40.8 million. The year after that, $43.8 million. The year after that, $46.8 million. Over the next 4 years, he's going to get $170 million from the Wizards. Now, if you're Anthony Davis, who is obviously injury prone, if you pop your Achilles, how many teams are going to be offering you the Supermax? Just think about that. Like, if this can happen to John Wall sitting at home, what's going to happen to you? I'm not saying, I'm not wishing it on him, but this is the decision he has to take into account, right? It really is. And also on top of that, when you think about the I know that the NBA claims to be swimming in money, right? But at what point do they run the risk of going bankrupt? That's a lot of money for a player that's not even going to help you. And like, honestly, he didn't help them anyway. I saw how bad they were playing with him this season as opposed to when Bradley Beal's been running the point. So they won't even have his services available. Who's going to be interested in that contract? Absolutely nobody. So what happens? Like that friend, like if you're a team, how are you meant to even support this team? Knowing that the next 3 years you're going to be essentially in quicksand. The only way up is to tank. But then if you tank, you get John Wall at the first round pick, and then it ends up banking your franchise, potentially bankrupting your franchise, or at least putting you in absolute limbo. The NBA's got problems, man. And the sad thing is, if it wasn't for this podcast, I'm not sure how much time or effort I would put into it. I have to watch the games because I need to be on top of what goes on so I can actually comment on it with some kind of knowledge. I'm not just going to go up there. There's enough idiots on podcasts and sports journalists who never watch the games spewing out their opinion. But if I didn't have this, I don't think I would bother with it. I really don't. This league is that's not a fun league to watch. It's not even worth, I hate to say it, it's really not worth my time. The podcast is worth my time. You guys are worth my time. But the NBA product itself is not worth my time. It's not a good product right now. And there's not much else I really want to say about that. Because I wish, when we have seen good games, like the Oklahoma City versus San Antonio game, I thought that was a brilliant game. A lot of intensity, it was fun. Did a podcast straight after it. When the Philly versus Golden State game happened, I did a podcast straight after it. Because I like talking about it when it's good. But how many games have we had this season? I know we're, the 2/3 of the way in. So I don't know how many, times 50 times 30, that's how many games we've had. And we've had 2 that I've really enjoyed. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. And I thought the games would actually carry me during the podcast, during the season. The topics would write themselves. The drama is what people are drawn to. And when you think about it, at some point people just turn off and they just don't care anymore. Because you can have all the hype in the world, but if you don't deliver on that hype, people are just going to walk away from it. They're going to find something better. There needs to be some substance there, and the NBA is severely lacking when it comes to substance. But there was some other NBA news. Tobias Harris traded from the Clippers to the Sixers, and yes, people are making fun of us that, the balance of power has shifted. Tobias Harris. Look, if you don't know who Tobias Harris is, shut the hell up and stop talking about basketball. Tobias Harris was a really good player on the Pistons. He was not very good on the Magic, I'll give you that, when he first entered the league, but he was great on the Pistons, and he was fantastic once again with the Clippers. This is a big trade, because now you have an additional scorer. Philly is not mucking around. Yeah, we know that they screwed up with Fultz. I've given them enough shit for that. But Jimmy Butler, the addition of Jimmy Butler, as well as Tobias Harris, and then you've got Simmons, and you've also got Embiid, that's suddenly they are the most talented team in the Eastern Conference. Even more so than Boston, even more so than Toronto. Whether they can put it all together, that's another question that needs to be answered. But they are the most talented team. And there isn't a whole lot of people that can dispute that. But if you're making fun of this trade, by the way, both teams got great value out of this trade, because the Clippers now have even more cap space, and they are going to be a big player in free agency because they are an amazing alternative to somebody who wants the LA market but doesn't want to deal with LeBron James circus. So if you're Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant or whoever, Kemba Walker maybe, who wants to come to Los Angeles but doesn't want to deal with that, what's going on over there, because believe me, players notice, then the Clippers, they look like a good option. So maybe they're going to be an even bigger player than we thought. And never, ever, ever doubt Jerry West when it comes to his management skills. But beyond that, they also got 2 first-round picks. So both teams got better. Both teams are going in different directions. One is still rebuilding. The other one is a championship contender. So obviously, they've got different motivations to it. So it's not who got the most talent. Obviously, Philly got the most talent out of this deal. But the other team they don't want talent. They want to be rebuilding. They want to have cap space, and they want to have draft picks. That's totally fine. I get that. But when it comes to what Philly got out of this, they got to be very happy with what they have now. Because you've got a starting lineup now of Embiid. You could go with Harris because Embiid's good enough to control the middle without a real big power forward. So Harris could play that. You could have Jimmy Butler, even though he's undersized, he plays much bigger than what he actually is. he could be a small forward. You got Redick. There's plenty of shooting there to make up for Ben Simmons. I like what they have there. That's a pretty good lineup. And when I say pretty good, that's good enough to win the East. And we saw what they were able to do to Golden State. Yes, Klay Thompson wasn't playing, but we saw what they were able to do to Golden State in Golden State without the addition, obviously, of Tobias Harris. You add him to it. If they can beat Golden State the way that they handled them in the last quarter and a half of that game, then they can. And you add Tobias Harris to that, they can beat anybody. They're a good team, man. They're a good team. Anyway, if it sounds like I was down, look, I'm just over the free agency stuff. Not the free agency, excuse me, the trade deadline. If there is any big trades coming up and they happen in the next 24 hours, you'll get another episode from me so we can actually talk about it. That's what the original plan was. But obviously, if there's none, then you won't hear from me until early next week. The other thing I wanted to mention is by the time you listen to this episode, there could be some big trades going down. I didn't purposely miss anything, but sometimes it takes a while for all the podcast platforms to send out the episodes to everybody. So keep in mind that this was recorded on the 6th of February at 11:30 a.m. So keep that in mind, please. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is I appreciate all the emails. I appreciate all the messages. However, don't apologize to me. This is not a worship channel. This is not a worship podcast. I did not create this platform so people would view me as some kind of authoritative figure in sports. Instead, I wanted to create conversation. And yeah, if you're wrong, I get it. Like with certain things. Look, I've been wrong on plenty of times too. This is not a holier than thou situation. So if you're wrong on certain things, then yeah, you were wrong. But you don't have to apologize to me. Just be aware of it. The frustrating thing with the whole LeBron thing is we've seen it 4 times happen before. So it's not like I predicted it out of the blue. There was a, we had seen it. There was a precedent for it. So once again, I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all the emails or whatever. But don't kiss my ass, please. I don't want that. All right, guys. That being said, enjoy the rest of your day. I hope the rest of your day is the best part of your day. Someone said that to me at the barbershop the other day, and I'm going to steal it. And with that in mind, take care.